Pardon the interruption, but I'm Pablo Torre. Mike Wilbon is off again, so I am back for a second straight show.
It's that guy again. How does he get in the building?
You know,
who does he know? Who does he know?
The thing about the whispering is that I can hear it. I can hear all of this. I can hear all of this. I know Tracy is right there, your consigliere, there for your private thoughts that happen to be broadcast to an audience that is, I think, unrivaled on this network still, maybe today. So, great.
Tracy's here, and she hears the whispering. I didn't know you could. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. Wilbon apparently has other priorities, so I'm pleased to be joined by our great friend, the host of the ESPN Daily podcast, Mr. Pablo Torre. There you go. And we begin today with the New England Patriots, who will play an exhibition game tonight against the Washington football team that, thank God, will be televised and I can watch it. For the second year in a row, quarterback is the focus for the Patriots. Both Cam Newton and first-round draft choice Mac Jones are scheduled to play. Pablo, does it feel like something is at stake for Newton and Jones?
Yeah, it feels like Cam Newton's life as a New England Patriot is on the line here. And I say that, Tony, because this past week I saw a headline that I found incredibly revealing. The headline was simply, Mac Jones, good at being yelled at. Like, Mac Jones seemingly is getting yelled at a lot in practice, and he's getting credit for that skill, which I can relate to as someone who shows up on this show and has something similar happen to me every time. But the point is, the New England Patriots have a Patriot way. Mac Jones is living up to the promise of somebody who, yes, likes to have, I don't know, his brow beaten every now and again. If you're Cam Newton, Tony, the deck kind of feels stacked against you if that's how people feel.
Yeah, Cam Newton is definitely a far superior NFL quarterback to Mac Jones. At least he was. Last year, the Cam Newton he saw did not resemble the Cam Newton we had come to watch with great awe. He couldn't throw the ball downfield at all. They had to run the ball a lot with him, and he was a great runner. He ran for 12 touchdowns, but only threw for 8. That's not the offense that we became used to with Tom Brady. That's not really the offense that Bill Belichick wants because it was an unbalanced offense. So I think more is at stake for Cam Newton holding on to this position as the incumbent, and we want to see that. I find myself sort of rooting for Cam Newton because he has been so supportive as a teammate. Everybody talks about that.
Yeah.
Everybody says what a great teammate he's been. This is not Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. He's been apparently supportive of Mac Jones. But I will tell you this. Bill Belichick, his dear friend is Nick Saban. It's hard for me to believe, Pablo, that Nick Saban did not say to Bill Belichick, if you draft this kid, he can win for you. He can step in and win for you. I just don't think you make that draft pick without that conversation. So it seems to me down the road, I don't know when, the emerging character will be Mac Jones.
I agree with you completely. Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, that friendship that we don't see from the outside in, I imagine that at the kernel of that is trust. Trust in mutual football evaluations. And the Cam Newton thing, just to put a point on that, the guy has nicknames for like everybody on the team. I don't know what else Cam Newton can do as a teammate to engender that kind of love and admiration. But the reality is, Tony, as Aaron Rodgers knows, there is a parallel here. You take a guy in the first round at quarterback, you're going to see him sooner rather than later. And I do feel like Cam Newton, for the reasons you said medically, his time is about up.
Interesting small little factoid.
Yeah.
That these two quarterbacks, Cam Newton and Mac Jones, have won national championships. I think in the rest of the league, that only occurs on one other team, and it occurs in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence and Tim Tebow, but doesn't really count because Tim Tebow's a tight end now. He's not a quarterback. Right. So I throw that out to you. Go ahead.
Dak Prescott, Tony, never won a national title, but when we last left him, he was throwing very softly to Amari Cooper, and the Cowboys seemed encouraged, honestly, about the improvement of his strained shoulder. They tried to maintain that positivity on their Twitter account last night when they posted this, quote, "It's not a setback and it's not a reason to worry, but quarterback Dak Prescott is planning on getting another MRI," end quote. So, Tony, is Dak getting another MRI a big deal, a little deal, or no deal to you?
Okay, let's not fool ourselves. It's not no deal. That's out. It's either a big deal or a little deal. And if they find something on that MRI, it could be a catastrophically big deal. Let us try now to connect the dots. The guy doesn't throw at all for 2 weeks. A real football does not throw a real football.
Yep.
Begins to throw a real football on Tuesday, albeit softly, to Amari Cooper. Within 48 hours, he's going to get another MRI. It's just precautionary, they say. It's just procedural. There's nothing to see here, all right? But I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say that until I see a panel of doctors at a table saying his shoulder's good, until I see and hear that, I'm going to say it's a big deal.
Yeah, Tony, this is perhaps the least surprising opinion that you've ever had in doing the show with me here, right? Like the idea that you are actually going to take what might be medically concerning as perhaps maximally concerning, that does seem in line with your general way of seeing the world. And in this case, I do think you happen to be right. You happen to be right because this injury to the shoulder is not a contact injury. It's a thing that developed because he seemed to be really throwing the ball too much after not throwing the ball enough. That's why they brought in all of these counselors from the Texas Rangers and the New York Yankees baseball teams, because this seemed like an overuse pitcher's arm type of thing. And that, to me, is the scariest part. The mileage on the arm is what I'm concerned about now, and that's a new concern from the legs and the ankle and everything else we've seen.
So I love the story because we're going to keep having this story for a long period of time, at least until he plays in a game. He's not playing in this exhibition game. Of course he's not playing. You mentioned the Texas Rangers. They said shut him down. If I'm the Cowboys, am I getting this MRI just so I can tell the Texas Rangers to shut up? Because that's what people do with pitchers. And to bring up Aaron Rodgers again, we don't have to see him in an exhibition game. He was healthy all year, right?
Yes.
He's the MVP.
We
got to see Dak Prescott in an exhibition game because he wasn't healthy. I can't imagine him going into game one without any reps at all in an exhibition game. Without any? Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, let's move on. And I'll wait for prompter. Oh, I like this story. Baseball is holding its Field of Dreams game tonight, having postponed it last year. You may remember the movie Field of Dreams, where ghostly players walk out of an Iowa cornfield and begin to play baseball. This game between the Yankees and White Sox will be held in Dyersville, Iowa. And indeed, the players will walk out of a cornfield and into a small 8,000-seat stadium. Pablo, does the spectacle of this game grab your attention?
So I don't know if you're a Field of Dreams guy, Tony. I confess that I am not. It is a movie that I think I've seen in the way that I've seen so many movies, which is to say piecemeal over years, dribs and drabs when it's on randomly. So I don't worship at its altar like that. But I do love the fact that Major League Baseball is the only sport of the big 3 to 4, depending on your definition, that has like arenas that change based on location. Ballpark factors are fascinating to me. And so the idea that, you know how they used to have that hill where the Astros played, where they used to run up the thing and there's like a flagpole, the idea that you could have people diving into corn, I'm in on that. I like the idea of people getting lost in corn. So for that reason, yes, I am in.
Okay, so I have seen the movie a couple of times, and I will give you a small review of the movie.
Please.
It is good, it is not great. It is schmaltzy, that is not smoltzy, it is schmaltzy. Kevin Costner is in a lot of sports movies. He's in Tin Cup. He's in Bull Durham, which is really a good movie. He's in Draft Day. Sort of Molly's Game as a sports background, Kevin Costner's character does in that particular thing. And he's going to be there tonight. Look, I really like this idea. It's old-timey. It's in a cornfield. We have to like that. And I like the idea mostly for this reason. This is not an exhibition game. This game counts. The players have to give full effort in this game. It's in the standings. This is why I like the NHL Winter Classic, because you can put it outdoors, you can put it in a stadium, you can put it on a pond, but it counts in the standings. That's very important to me, and it's one of the reasons that I appreciate what they're doing in this particular game, and I really do hope it works well.
Yeah, somewhere in that IMDb summary, Tony, you left out sponsorship. I don't know if sponsors were a big part of the movie. That seems to be a big part of the enterprise here, because not only is this interesting and different for the ways that you said, very much like the Winter Classic, it's also a thing you can monetize. And so if this incentivizes baseball to do stuff like this that is different and weird, I lean into weird at this point. Yeah, I want that.
So I like the idea a lot. I think it is baseball understanding that at its core, it is a rural game, not a city game. the literature of baseball is replete with strong kids hitting the cover off the ball, then getting on a train to the big city. So I like what they've done. Let's move on and take a break. But coming up, Shohei Ohtani is back on the mound tonight. He will face Vlad Jr. Who should we expect more from?
And Corbin Burns tied a major league record with 10 consecutive strikeouts last night, but was Adam Wainwright even more impressive?
Do you go to those corn mazes? Do you take your daughter to the corn mazes and walk her around? Do you do that? Do you like those?
Tony, I have not seen a corn maze in my life. I thought the train you referred to, the big city, was the LIRR. Is that the train we're talking about here? Because that's the only one that I'm familiar with, really, in this region.
You need to go to a corn maze. You need to lose yourself in the essence and aroma of a corn maze. It's time for toss-up. Two men enter, but one of them is a substitute host. So let's just mark me down for the win right now, shall we? What's first?
Toss up. Who do you expect more from tonight? Vlad Jr. or Shohei?
Well, I expect to see Shohei Ohtani much more because he is pitching and hitting, and Vlad Jr. is only hitting. In fact, I would assume that Ohtani will pitch to Vlad Jr. in the first inning. Vlad Jr. is batting .311. He's got 35 home runs, but, and there's always a but, Ohtani has only allowed 4 earned runs in his last 4 starts. Ohtani will probably bat 5 times at least because he's batting leadoff now, because pitchers pitch around him, because he has 38 home runs and you don't want to pitch to him as much as you could. Here is the ultimate scenario. Here's what we want. The game is on the line. It's the 7th or the 8th inning. Ohtani is still pitching. Guerrero gets up as either the tying or the winning run. And whoever wins that particular battle gets bragging rights for the foreseeable future. But on the overall scale, Pablo, the season that Ohtani is having is simply amazing.
Yes. No, I mean, I want to go to the overall scale here because there's another wrinkle to that hypothetical that you just gave, because maybe, it's not just Shohei versus Vlad Guerrero, pitcher versus hitter. Maybe Shohei then gets back into the lineup in the next inning and ends up taking care of the game that way. Because to me, the ultimate scenario here is the fact that this is the MVP. Shohei Ohtani is the MVP. I understand that we like Vlad Guerrero a lot, but until Vlad Guerrero gets on a pitcher's mound and throws pitches like Shohei Ohtani does, this entire conversation is almost offensive to me. How can it not be Shohei Ohtani when he does that as well?
Next.
Toss up. More impressive pitcher last night, Corbin Burns or Adam Wainwright?
Okay, so let me give you the backstory. Corbin Burns at one point struck out 10 consecutive batters, tying a major league record with Aaron Nola and Tom Seaver, and that's it. That's the list. Adam Wainwright pitched a complete game, 2-hit shutout in which he only threw 88 pitches, which I believe is the fewest amount of pitches so far this year in a complete game. All right, so now how do I evaluate this? If I look at it, all things considered, I think that Wainwright is probably more impressive because he goes the full game, he has those numbers, he only pitches 88 pitches, and he gets 2 hits. So he gets as many hits, Pablo, as he allows.
Correct.
But if you think I'm going to downgrade a guy who struck out 10 in a row, who went 8 innings of shutout ball, and who struck out 15 totally, you're crazy. I don't downgrade that. So while I think that Wainwright may be slightly more impressive, Burns is totally more spectacular. Totally.
Yeah, there's another name that I think may tip the scale here, and that name is Bartolo Colon. Because what Adam Wainwright has done is become the oldest pitcher to pull this off. And yes, by the way, it was a Maddox, right? Fewer than 100 pitches to get a shutout. Very impressive. That's the Greg Maddux statistic. The point is, he's the oldest guy to do that since Bartolo Colon at age 42. So the question is, well, how impressive do you find Bartolo Colon? I find him very impressive, but I find Corbin Burns even more impressive because, as you know, Tony, the strikeout is the ultimate symbol of dominance. You didn't accidentally get someone to roll over on a pitch, ground it out, whatever. No, these guys all tried to hit you 10 strikeouts, all swinging. And that, to me, is incredible.
Two small things. They were Cubs. That's a AAA team right now. I don't know if that's a downgrade at all. And Wainwright, will be 40 years old at the end of the month. That's it. Eat it, Pablo. Let's take one last break. Still to come. Should we believe Urban Meyer when he says he still doesn't know his starting quarterback?
And we'll show you why people are comparing Lakers rookie Shondae Brown Jr. to Zion Williamson.
At this point, the Cubs and the Nats, they're not major league teams. They're not.
No.
They go out there, they lose all the time. They don't, their roster is, and that's already lost
functionally